So this week I am attempting to do a review week because there are so many movies, almost too many movies that are coming out in the month of March that I need to play a little bit of catch up. So this week expect Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 movie reviews. That's the goal. Don't hate me if that doesn't happen. Scheduling things happen, you know, but that's what I'm going to attempt to do because I'm going to see Late Night with the Devil today. Yes, I will be talking about the AI controversy about that. And then tomorrow I'm going to see Immaculate. So I'm hoping this week can be all about catching up on reviews. Today, we're obviously talking about Love Lies Bleeding, which is the latest A24 movie directed by Rose Glass, who also did Saint Maud, which I obviously love. I debated filming a review for this one, to be honest, because I thought I should focus more on like the horror-driven stories and the ones that are technically horror movies. And also, I was a little bit nervous this movie would not be my cup of tea, and it's kind of obvious as to why that would be. But no, I saw it and it was really good, and so I decided to talk about it. So Love Lies Bleeding is technically described as action, adventure, crime, mystery, romance, thriller. So it's kind of horror adjacent, right? There you could argue there's horror elements in it. So this follows Lou, who is a reclusive gym manager who falls hard for Jackie, an ambitious bodybuilder who's headed to Las Vegas to pursue her dream. Their love soon leads to violence as they get pulled deep into the web of Lou's criminal family. Not only is this a romance movie, but it is also set in the 80s, which is why I thought maybe I wouldn't like it. Now, I talked all about this already in my Lisa Frankenstein review because that's a romance movie set in 1989, just like Love Lies Bleeding. But if you know anything about me, you know that a romance movie is typically not my thing, and the 80s, I'm just over as a decade in media. Like, I just feel like we can move on from it a little bit. Like, I just feel like it's tired. It's a tired trope and a tired decade. We need to let it rest. But I love this movie a lot. And I'm only human. I mean, the romance was hot. You know, I wasn't mad at a single scene. I think it's because of the story being kind of dramatic, right? It's not like a perfect love story where it's like two people just fall in love, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we're always rooting for Lou and Jackie in this, but there's unhealthy tendencies going on, right? But I loved the story of their romance, and it felt very down to earth. And I don't want to say realistic necessarily, because obviously they get wrapped up in some crime and like things happen, but it didn't feel like your lovey-dovey kind of romance, you know, for most of it. And also the 80s setting in this was so mild that I really feel like it added to the tone of the movie. It was never in your face. It was like this is what realistic 80s, 1989 era feels like to me. Like, this is what I would imagine. And I felt like the 80s setting was actually perfect for the tone and the style of this movie, and I wouldn't change it at all. I feel like it added a lot to it, and the characters looked the part. Like, the actors really transformed into looking like realistic 1989 people from that era. And I think that's another one of my problems. I think my best friend's Exorcism, I didn't believe those people were from the 80s. You know what I mean? Lisa Frankenstein was okay. Totally Killer, kind of okay. See, the fact that I can just ramble off a bunch of movies that have come out recently from the 80s is like, can we get something from the 90s and the 2000s, please? At least Late Night with the Devil is set in the 70s. At least there's that. Anyway, one thing that I really loved about Love Lies Bleeding is the setup of the story and the way that the story unfolds. I felt like it was great at interconnecting all of the characters in a believable way. It wasn't like anything was forced into it, and I really liked all of the dynamics between the characters and the fact that they felt like such real people and were just so believable. And I've been seeing some people describe this as like a neo-noir movie, which I find really interesting. And I mean, the themes and everything is dark, and you know, the vibe of this is moody and violent. So I could totally see this being just, you know, fitting into a noir category. Speaking of violence, this, I feel like I really need to give a heavy trigger warning for the theme of DV, because that is very prevalent in this movie and it's very difficult to watch. So I just wanted to, throw that out there for you guys. We need to talk about the cast. The cast, obviously, one of the best things about this movie. Kristen Stewart as Lou, fantastic. I felt like her character also, in some of her line delivery, gave a little bit of comedic relief. There is some humor in this, but not like in your face. It's just kind of like, it kind of cuts the edge a little bit of the heaviness of what is actually taking place in this movie and like what is happening in the story. And I feel like Kristen Stewart's character Lou was really great at that. And like sometimes her line delivery was funny, not in the sense that she's bad. In fact, I think she was amazing in this. I've always been a fan of Kristen Stewart's acting. I don't understand the hate for that, to be honest, because I think she's always been really talented. I like the way she acts. I don't know how to explain it, but you know her style, and I've always been a fan. Katie O'Brien as Jackie, she was meant to play Jackie, which is why it blows my mind that she had to audition for this role 6 times before being given it, because she is just the epitome of, like, who else would you cast? Like, who else was in the running for this role that Katie O'Brien, I was gonna call her Jackie because she is Jackie, Katie O'Brien would not have worked. Like, we have Dave Franco kind of playing a slimy scumbag, what he does so well. Jenna Malone plays Lou's sister, Kristen Stewart's sister, which I feel like they look alike, so I think that's a really smart casting choice. Ed Harris as their father was, he's just believable. I was just icky kind of guy. But I think the casting and the characterization of all of them and all the details put into each character is really what sold this movie for me and made me, like, in it. I was engaged and just really wanting to see what was going to happen to these characters at the end of the day, because I genuinely cared about some of them. So that's all nice, and that's what we want in movies, right? But I have to talk about the best thing about this movie was the score and the soundtrack. Normally, I'm not a score and soundtrack kind of person. I've been asked before, like, what are your favorite movies that have the best scores, or what are the best scores you've ever heard, and things like that. I don't really pick up on those things that much unless they really stand out to me and are really unique. Otherwise, I don't really, I think I'm trying to like pay attention a little bit more now. But this one, within 1 minute of this movie, the score just like got me. And I turned to my friend even like 1 minute in, I'm like, the score's so good, like already. I love the opening scene of this. It just hooks you from the very beginning in the best way. And it's weird because I don't normally like 80s vibes, but I felt like they captured it so well, like a believable 80s setting. And I loved it. I loved the artistic choice with that. And I honestly really loved the balance of the romance, which gives you a little bit of a break from these dire situations that you think can't get worse. But of course, they continue to get worse. It almost reminds me of Uncut Gems a little bit, because the anxiety that you feel because it just keeps going and like things are just spiraling and getting way out of hand. That's what this feels like, but it's balanced out with a romantic storyline. Granted, rocky at times, right? But you're still kind of rooting for them and rooting for them as people in general because you care about them. So I feel like because it's intertwined with this romantic storyline, it's not as like persistent of anxiety as it was in Uncut Gems. But I feel like that's a comparison of what I was feeling when I was watching this. So gore. We got to talk about the gore, which is why I wanted to review this in the first place as a horror movie, because you cannot help but viscerally react to the gore that happens in this movie. It is so jarring. That alone is, why I would say to watch it in theaters, that and the score, just so you can really see it. When you're on your TV at home, I feel like it doesn't have as much of an impact as when you see it on the big screen with the score combined with the surround sound. I think this is 100% a theater experience for those two things specifically. I think I audibly said, "Oh my God," twice in this and was very shocked. It's very shocking. It's like I've seen worse gore in movies like Saw, but it's the type of story where it feels so real that the gore is more shocking and honestly very, very disturbing. But I loved it. I loved the gore and the brutality of this. Like, this goes there. And it takes a while to get there. And I was wondering how far it would kind of push the violence, because I kind of saw this as like a romantic thriller movie. You know, I knew the general story going into it. So I was wondering how violent it was going to get, because Saint Maud, you know, also by Rose Glass, had some of that in there. And, you know, more traditional of a horror movie. Pleasantly surprised. I was very grateful. In fact, I could have taken some more, but, you know, I'll take what I can get. I thought it was really, really good and just added so much to the movie. So I think horror fans would absolutely love Love Lies Bleeding because of the violent nature of everything that happens and the disturbing element. So where I feel like this movie loses people, okay, there's no spoilers in this video, but I feel like where this movie loses people is the ending, because I was reading some reviews from this after I came out of the movie, because I was like, what was that ending? What was that? Because it gets weird. It gets so weird, and I think it's not going to be for everyone. And it took me a day or two sitting on it to realize that I do actually like the choice that they made for that. It does feel like it gets a little surreal, right? You're like, what is real? What's happening? And it feels a little bit disjointed from the rest of the movie in the end. And I wish there was more of that surrealism type thing, you know, that artistic choice more in the movie. There was a couple moments where you're questioning what is real, or like, you know, things necessarily aren't actually real that we're seeing, because they tell you afterwards, like, oh, by the way. And I wanted more of that balanced throughout the movie. I think that would have had a bigger impact of the ending, but maybe they wanted to just hold out for the end to really shock people and like make people either love or hate this movie at the end of the day. I think it's gonna have a lot of people loving it for a long time until it gets to the ending, and it's gonna throw some people off, I think. It's a lot like Saint Maud in the sense that the lines between reality and the character's internal experience are really blurred. So we know not to take everything, you know, too literally, because we know that there's some things that they maybe see that we don't, and they're experiencing something that isn't based in reality, if that makes any sense. There's a lot of similar tones to Saint Maud in that sense. So I feel like Rose Glass is really good at blurring those lines between reality and surrealism. And personally, I don't take the ending literally. Like, I don't think, you know, that, you know, I don't want to say too much, but I don't take it literally. I think it is metaphorically, maybe. And I think of it more as a experience of the character than anything. Like, we saw a little bit of that earlier in the film, and I actually like it. I love it now that I look back on it in, you know, with the movie as a whole, thinking about it. I like it. I wish there was more of it to kind of give us more. But then again, I don't know if that would have been necessary for the viewer, because I think it's going to be polarizing. And I like when movies do that, and they're bold and they make bold choices in the end. At first, I wasn't a huge fan of it. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, what the fuck is happening? But now, having thought about it for a couple days, I get it. And I actually really like that it's in the movie, and I think it adds to the movie. Overall, I give this a 4 out of 5, and I don't know what it would need to make it a 5 out of 5, to be honest. I don't know. I feel like I wanted more surrealism, more violence even, but that's me as a horror fan being greedy, so that's a little unfair. But otherwise, I thought the tone, the characters, the score, and the cinematography, I thought all of that was really, really done well. I think it's not quite a 5 out of 5. Like, it's not a perfect movie by any means, but I loved this movie, and I will probably be purchasing it and rewatching it. If you've seen Love Lies Bleeding, what are your thoughts, especially about that end scene? If you're going to spoil it though, and you want to talk more about it, make sure you label it in your comment that you're going to spoil it. So just put spoilers or something in your comment to help other people avoid that if they haven't seen it yet. But please go to the theater to experience this movie. It was fantastic. This is one of those that I wish I could go and see in theater again. I simply don't have the time for it because I have to watch other movies that are in theaters right now. I have to, you know, dedicate my time to that. But this is one I would want to see again. And I feel like upon rewatch, this would actually be better in my opinion. So go check it out. Go watch Love Lies Bleeding. It's fantastic. But what are your thoughts on it? I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye.